everybody, the Lord Root here, and welcome to another episode of Kerbal Aerospace program. I actually got it this time without mentioning Let's Play like I did last time, but let's see if we could show you a couple of planes I've been working on. It's been a slow week for me largely because I'm proctoring finals this week, and because of that I don't have as much time to my name. But I do happen to have a couple of interesting planes I've made in the interim. And so let's just find this first one here. We have a P-38 Lightning clone. And that is, we're not going to go to the astronaut complex, we're going to launch here. The P-38 Lightning is an interesting platform. It is you've got the cockpit and you've got these two engine nacelles that come off the side that are supported by the wings. And this was noted in World War II for being one of the better fighters. I'm not going to turn on SAS this time though. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the trim controls and try to lift off normally. Now you'll notice there are some features here that are not quite as I suppose as critical to this platform. For instance, I have canards because it's a little bit difficult to get this off the runway without them, because this is actually a lot bigger. And one of the things that I had tried to do here, it looks like I actually need to bring down, I'll just do this real quick. I need to bring down my trim just a little bit. I'm going to equalize it. I think that is about right. I found that flying with SAS is a bit of a problem. The reason for that is because of the fact that SAS pretty much wants to jerk you back in the direction that you set it at, so it takes a while for it to figure out which way you're trying to go. And because of that, it's difficult to stabilize it. I'm just going to, I got a little bit of roll here, so I'm going to dip over to the side. I'm going to do some flying around here. This plane, once you get it up in the air, is actually fairly easy to fly. Easy enough, at least, that you can end up, landing it the way that, I normally try to. We're about 3,000 feet here, so I'm going to level off and let ourselves, we'll drop a little bit, so I might bring this up, but we'll begin our turning maneuver here and we'll try to land. So this thing can turn pretty fast, and we do want to be careful so we don't make this thing spin out of control. But you can see we are headed pretty close to the right direction here. And I didn't put up my gear like I should have, but we'll begin by lowering our engine and nosing down just a little bit. What this will cause us to do is this will cause us to slip to the side a little bit, although we do want to be careful here, and I may not have gone out far enough for this. I may have gone a little bit too high. We're going to go into a bit of a nosedive. Probably against my better judgment here. And we're beginning to slip a little bit too far to the side, so I'm going to align myself. And we're dropping at about 100 meters per second. It's about time now that we get ourselves aligned. And I'm going to pull up so that we don't run as much of a risk as crashing, or of crashing rather. And let me just get this guy over here. We'll just, since we're so close to the runway, I'll bring out my gear, which I already had. And we may come a little bit short. But this has such a wide deal going on here that this isn't so bad. And we'll flare up to reduce the amount of energy that we need. As you can see, we're getting pretty close here, so we'll need to stop pretty soon. We may run off the runway as a result, but we will stop presently. And because we have steering enabled, maybe I can get this thing to turn around. Maybe not. But we'll try the other runway real quick. And hopefully we won't collide with that light. Because as you probably know, there's more than one runway around here. There is additionally the island runway, which I don't believe I've ever landed on, so this will be new to me. That is, of course, over here. And on this one, if we run out of room, we are in a little bit of trouble. Because, as I recall, this one has a little bit less in the way of space on the runway. But we're more or less level at this point. And we won't really have trouble hitting this thing, I hope. That's it off in the distance. believe the main thing we're going to have to contend with is maybe extraneous lift and instability. I'm just going to use SAS for a brief moment to get us stable. But these things are a little bit easier to fly, believe it or not, without SAS. It's not that bad of a deal. And of course, while I'm flying, I'm going to crack open a beer. Because every good pilot needs to have a can of solids in their cup holder. And so we're just going to fly on over here. You can see we are turning just a little bit. And we will stabilize this thing. I made an effort on this plane to balance it in such a way that whenever we drain fuel, that even when it's completely out of fuel, that the center of mass stays just about the same. And that was part of the difficulty here. We want the center of mass to remain as, close to where it is so that we don't lose our control authority. Because as we know, when that center of mass ends up behind the center of lift, it makes things a little bit difficult. And you can see here one of the issues with the plane, which is that the wings do happen to separate just a little bit. That's because there's such a huge wingspan. Another thing that's not really faithful to the design of the P-38 here is that this is a pusher type plane, and of course the P-38 is a puller. Now pullers, as we discovered with the biplane designs we did, are a little bit difficult to design. The reason is that you really only have parts that can push. You have these jet engines. It might be interesting in career mode for us to have propellers, which there's the fire spitter pack. That one is one that is worth messing around with. But it's not part of the stock, and that is a bit of a shame, in my opinion. Because fire spitter, I haven't messed around with it. It looks really cool, but I think that a proper career mode, and there are mods to the tech tree that do address this issue, but a proper career mode should start out with flight first. And the trouble is, as we saw, is that you can get into space with just, jets. You won't get into orbit probably, although I've seen people who have, and this may have been in earlier versions of KSP, but I've seen people who have been able to get planes with jet engines and a sufficient number of air intakes into orbit. Those, unfortunately, are pretty large, but I've seen them go escape velocity, which is pretty amazing. We'll just slip over to the side here. And that mountain is probably going to be the biggest thing to get in the way here. I'm not going to turn the engines off completely just yet, because I do want a little bit in the way of, maneuverability here. But getting aligned is, it seems, the most difficult part of this deal. And we need to straighten up and probably lower our landing gear at this point. And I think we'll go ahead and we'll cut engines for now. But let's straighten out and let's try not to overdo this. So we are missing the runway just a little bit. This thing does have issues with that sort of thing, but fortunately our takeoff distance is not all that bad. So this is a first for me. I've never actually hit the runway before. And we still got plenty of fuel. Why the engines are still going is beyond me. I guess they're still spooling down. But we'll leave oars are out for the time being. We might decide to come back and fly away from this because that would be interesting, or we just might recover the vessel later on. I haven't decided, but I'm not really that satisfied with just that. I decided I wanted to make a little bit more interesting of a plane, one that is a little bit more it's a little bit more crazily designed. And it's not that this design is all that crazy, but it is really interesting. We've got 4 engines here. It's a tail dragger, and initially I had actually put the wings way up on top. That turned out to be a problem in terms of control. But you can see we actually have 4 engines. 2 of them are hidden below here. And a reason we have it is that we're in a hybrid configuration here. And why are we in orbital mode? That's kind of weird. We are in a hybrid configuration where we have both pushing and pulling going on, and with these 4 engines we just happen to get this balance going on to where as long as the fuel is it's not perfectly balanced, but as long as the fuel stays in the same place, it's not all that bad. So I'm going to try to take this thing to the North Pole. However, before I do that, I do need to make some pitch adjustments here, because this thing, because of the way that the plane is designed, has a really nasty habit of pitching down. But we'll be able to get off in almost no time. Now, I'm not going to bother trying to land this thing this time at the runway, because that is a challenge that is definitely worth it, but Instead, I'm going to try and take us to the North Pole. Because this thing can get really high up. And you can see it's struggling to turn. I don't know if that's because of the speed at which I'm going, because I'm about Mach 0.6 at this point. And that is a bit of a problem. We need to bring up our pitch just a little bit. Probably bring up our gear too. Hopefully I did not... Yeah, it looks like I trimmed a little bit too much. We could in fact probably do a 90-degree climb here if we wanted to. I mean, this craft right here is actually capable of doing, it's like maybe 10 tons, which is a bit heavy, but you can already see that we've got significant Mach effects. And I'm going to start leveling off here because we can get pretty high up, but there's really no need to get so high up. In fact, I'm thinking about using this thing as a basis for the Hat Mark III, not that ridiculous you know, NASA parts rocket that I created, but something a little bit different instead. That's essentially our a true rocket plane that... I'll just turn on fine controls here. Yeah, we do have to be careful here. There is a deal going on here to where if we're not careful, we will get this thing, you know, pointing back down towards the ground, which is not necessarily what I want to do. We can, we can get this thing going up pretty high, and we just have to try to overcome some of these maneuverability issues. There are presently issues with this guy consuming a little bit too much in the way of fuel, but if you get it up high enough, and you'll see that we do get remarkably good performance out of this, and this should be enough to at least take us to the moon. I think a design like or not to the moon, but to the North Pole, rather. We do want to be extremely careful here, though, because we are getting a lot of roll from this. Now, what could we do with this? Well, we could do a number of things, like in real, or not in real, I mean, it's not entirely real what I'm trying to do, but in, um, in the main series, I can, um, I can attempt to use this deal here to, maybe drop pods off in particularly interesting areas where it would be difficult to land. That'll be one possible use case of this guy. And I'm just going to turn on the map. You can see I'm actually going at a pretty decent deal here. We're at a fairly stable trajectory. I was just kind of curious where I was. Now, if we don't get there, of course, we'll still be able to land this thing. As long as we're not colliding into those mountains. And at this point, I'm going to set up the pitch up pretty far. As we are running into this issue right now of not necessarily maintaining enough of a I don't know why this guy is not working as intended. For some reason, I'm trying to bring up the pitch control here. And maybe oh, you know why? Because SAS is overriding the pitch. Or not the pitch, but the trim. In fact, for some reason that I'm not entirely sure of, SAS has decided that it's not going to keep my heading going, which is kind of weird. It's I guess it's bound to happen, but let's just see here. We may or may not make it. It would be a shame if we didn't. But we're about to get on our reserve fuel here in a bit. Let's just see. Our efficiency has dropped a bit. So maybe this is not the optimal height to be at. I'm hoping this will bring up our efficiency a little bit. Yeah, this thing went pretty fast even with the regular engines on it, the basic jet engines. And that's a little noteworthy to my way of thinking. I don't know what's up with SAS. It's, it's decided to be a little bit of a bother here. If we run out of fuel over the Arctic Ocean, I might be happy with that. It's just for now that we may or may not be able to. Well, you know what? I think we'll make it. I think that's actually rather deceptive. Once we've gotten a little bit closer. And we need to get out of the atmosphere a little bit. We're a little bit too low now. We're we are dipping a little bit below the horizon at this point, so I'm going to trim down a little bit. We've got these oscillations here that for some reason or another. Okay, so I want to actually bring my trim down quite a bit. It's way too high. That would probably explain why I'm having so much trouble maintaining control. Will we hit the North Pole? That's going to be the question. This thing is oscillating so much that left to its own devices, we may encounter substantial difficulty there. But we are getting pretty close. I can glide this guy on in, I think. If I can maintain this level of flight, I just need to get back out of the atmosphere where there's less drag. And there's a trade-off here. I mean, we are, in a lot of ways, going a lot faster than we need to be. We're dealing with drag in a way that we really shouldn't need to. But it looks like if we keep on going, we will end up in the kind of heading that we want to. We just need to be careful about turning, because that is the easiest way for us to end up losing velocity. But there is pretty much the there's the Arctic right there. I just need to find a way to not bleed off as much in the way of velocity. If that is even necessary. I mean, I think at our altitude, we should be able to make it. This has been a 9-minute flight, which means, let's see, Kerbal is some 6 times the 6 times the size of Earth, I think. I'm not entirely sure about that. I believe the universe rescale mod, or whatever it's called, places it at something like that. It might be 10. In which case, a trip like this should take about an hour and a half. Now, we've actually been... I mean, the game is skipping cycles for the purposes of keeping everything going. But we are going to run out of fuel now, and we have just hit the coast. So, we have flamed out. And because of that, we now have to worry about getting past this coastline, which may or may not be difficult to do. I'm going to lower the trim just a little bit. and we're going to get ourselves a nice easy glide on in here. Hopefully with no hills in the way. That little ice sheet there does look like it'll be nice. Now, as for why this thing is off balance, I'm not entirely sure. I'm trying my best to pull up, or maybe I should have saved some fuel for that. And this may end up killing old Gusner. Which would be a shame. Although what I could do is I could do something kind of like this. Or maybe that will kill me. Maybe the way to get level is to pick up some velocity by doing a nosedive. Or maybe that ain't happening. Yeah, I think I made it worse. Although we do seem to be pitching up just a little bit. So let's hope that we can keep this guy from pointing down to the ground too much. At this point, maybe I should have brought this guy up a little bit. I should have put the center of mass further towards the tail. Because unfortunately, there's not much I can really do to get out of this at the moment. We're about to run out of electric charge, which means bad things for us. It'll probably mean that we're going to lose some control. Some reaction wheel control, that is. Well, I'm gonna hope that these wheels are going to do something to help us. The chances of surviving are not all that good for us, though. Well, Gustner would have survived if we were up in the front, but we at least have the swing here that we can recover. So May we made that vehicle a little bit too heavy. May we didn't give it enough lift. But that's kind of the trade-off we have to make there. I'm just going to find our debris and clean it up. We could have a memorial for him, but we will forget Gustner's struggle. I meant to do recovery on that. Well, I guess I need a little bit more work on landing. But at any rate, this has been Thy Lord Root, and I will see you next time.